Avenue Radio.world. Don't forget to log on www.RainierAvenueRadio.world.
Hey. Welcome. This is Brenda Charles-Edwards, the host of Seniors Matter. We are live every Friday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on www.RainierAvenueRadio.world, your community radio station. You can also listen to us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch TV, Rainier Avenue Radio App, and Alexa. Seniors Matter invites a variety of guests to discuss issues and activities that may impact the lives of older adults, their families, and community. If you have any questions, please put them in the comment section on Facebook or call 206-290-9685. This is Women's History Month, and we're commemorating and encouraging the study, observance, and celebration of the vital role of women in American history. You are not your circumstances. You are your possibilities. If you know that, you can do anything. That was a quote by Oprah Winfrey, and she's obviously proved that. My first guest is Trudy James. She's a chaplain. She's the founder of Speaking of Dying and the producer of the film Speaking of Dying. She's my mentor and friend. Welcome to the show, Trudy James. Hey. Hi, Trudy.
So good to see you, Brenda.
I know, it's been a while.
Yeah.
We're going to have to get together and go walking soon.
I hope so.
Like around the block? Oh, no, just kidding. Okay.
Spring will be here and it will stop raining soon and then we can walk.
Well, I'm just glad it's not snowing. The rain is fine. And I think it's still raining, but it's very light, it seems.
Yeah.
But anyway, why are you so passionate about this idea of speaking of dying, Trudy?
So, Brenda, for many, many years, I've been a chaplain, but in the early days of the AIDS epidemic, I recruited and trained teams of volunteers in the South to become friends to people with AIDS. And at that time, just about everyone, died. And it was my job to support these volunteers. I see my glasses are crooked.
You're fine. Nobody noticed.
It was my job to support the volunteers. And so we all had to learn a lot about dying. And what we learned is that the people who got to talk about their death ahead of time and plan what they wanted and talk about what they wanted died better, had more peaceful deaths, had more meaningful deaths, better for their families, better for them. And then 10 years, 12 years ago now, when I retired from AIDS work, I started doing these workshops called, at that time, A Gift for Yourself and Your Loved Ones. And they were 4 sessions to give people plenty of time to learn what the resources are for people with a terminal illness, or for all of us, really, to learn what the resources are about dying and to talk to their family members, or to talk, if they don't have family, to talk to someone about what they want. Otherwise, medicine is wonderful today. In some ways, we're the beneficiaries of a system with many possibilities, many treatments, many medications, many ways to keep us alive. But when our body's ready to go, medicine is reluctant to support that. And if people haven't talked to their doctor or their family members ahead of time, they might be kept alive. They will be kept alive probably much longer than they would wish to be. And they won't have the kind of death they want. So I think everyone should have the kind of death they want. Now, COVID has really made this impossible for many people. They haven't been able to talk their loved ones, and I think it makes it so much harder on those who are left behind if their loved one, if they can't see their loved one.
Right. So, Trudy, won't doctors just automatically choose what's best for their patients?
Well, doctors are healers and they want what's best for their patients, but they want to they often want to do the heroic thing and keep their patients alive. That's what they're trained to do. Some of them are learning new ways, but unless they're a hospice physician, they mostly know how to keep people alive, not how to coach them in dying or let them die. That just isn't their job. It's our job to know what kind of death we want and to talk. If you talk to your doctor about it, usually they'll be really happy and say, "Oh, I'm so glad that you talked to me about this."
So what choices are there for people with a terminal diagnosis?
Well, it depends on the diagnosis, of course, but if people are getting close to the end of their life, they can have hospice care. Now, doctors will resist putting people in hospice care, and they'll say, well, that just means you're giving up. But if there's not a chance of you making a full recovery, then hospice care is wonderful, and you can have it for up to 6 months, and it doesn't cost anything, and it offers some support to your family as well as to the patient. Palliative care is another option people don't know about. And then if people get one of these diseases that are so devastating, like a diagnosis of ALS or Alzheimer's or multiple systems failure, they might want to think early on about what their other options are. So one of those that's available to everyone is voluntary stopping eating and drinking. People used to do that in the old days, just sort of automatically but they died at home and they would just quit eating and drinking. But now you have to think about it ahead of time and get a little bit of medical support. And people who do this often usually die within 4 to 10 days, and it's peaceful and it's not painful. Now, if you have dementia or early stage memory loss, you can think about voluntary stopping eating and drinking before it gets to the point where you must go into a facility because your family can't take care of you anymore. For others, we live in a state with the Death with Dignity law. We've had it now for, I think, 10 years.
10 years, yeah.
Yeah. And people can contact the organization called End of Life Washington. They'll get a volunteer who will come out and explain the whole process to them and stay with them all the way and with their family till first they have to visit a doctor who will say they have less than 6 months to live and that they're mentally competent. Once that doctor and then another doctor signs off on that, then they can get this prescription. And if their disease becomes too painful, or if they feel their suffering is unbearable, they can take this medication and have all their family around them and die a peaceful and meaningful death. So I want people to know those options. Whether they ever use them, they should have the right to know those options. So that's
And the key on that is they have to administer it to themselves. No one else can do it. Correct?
No, that would be probably murder of someone else. That would be illegal. They can't do that. But So the person still has to be able to take the medication. I've known of cases where people with Alzheimer's could inject it into a feeding tube and take it that way, but it has to be self-administered. And that's why you can't wait too long to find out about it and get the medication. You can't wait till the last day because you have to get the prescription and you have to be able to self-administer it.
Right. If you're just tuning in, you're listening live to Seniors Matter with your host, Brenda Charles-Edwards, on www.rainieravenueradio.world, your community radio station. We're here every Friday at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You can watch, listen to us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch TV, the Rainier Avenue Radio App, and Alexa. Do you need financial documents notarized? Are you a senior that needs documents read to you for clarity or completion? Call me, Brenda at Black Orchid Notary, 206-683-2636. Tell me where, I'll meet you there. This is Women's History Month. When people don't want the best for you, they're not the best for you. And that's a quote by Gail King. Now back to my guest, Trudy James, who has facilitated workshops to support the process of completing an advanced healthcare directive, providing the opportunity to learn about current research sources, reflect on the meaning of the dying process, share stories, take control of one's own end-of-life choices. So Trudy, how do you think COVID has changed your mind about your work?
It's only made me believe it's more important for all of us to talk now to the people we care about what has mattered to us. So I sometimes talk about the real work of dying is to review your life and tell people goodbye and tell people you love them. Well, with COVID, once it happens, you don't always get those opportunities.
Right.
So I think all of us need to think about just doing that on a regular basis, looking back on our life, being sure our loved ones know what was important to us, and telling people that we care about them, telling them that, hopefully telling them that we're not afraid of dying, because what really hurts the survivors is not to know what their loved one was thinking about or how they felt.
Right.
Yeah. It's COVID has been very sad for survivors, I think. And it has led to a lot of prolonged grieving and unsupported grief. Yeah.
I know you do grief work too, Trudy. And I've known some people that have lost family members to COVID. And the one thing that they say, what hurts them the most is that they weren't able to be with their loved one when they passed on.
Exactly.
And they're having a hard time dealing with that.
It's terrible. I have a young friend who's only 30 years old, and she's lost 8 relatives and family members.
Wow.
And, we can't go to support groups right now, but there are grief resources online for people, and there are groups. I think what helps people the most, though, is to have someone they can talk to about it. And with COVID, people have been reluctant to talk,
Well, I'm one of your facilitators, and I have definitely seen a difference before COVID and after COVID. And I always tell people that I'm available for workshops to help them figure out what it is they want, but in particular, what they don't want. For instance, if you have to go to the hospital and you're going to ICU, do you want to be put on a ventilator or do you not? And fortunately, I've been reading that they're starting to put less people on ventilators, which is good.
That is good. But, a lot of these things depend on your age.
Right.
So I'm in my 80s now. I've told my children as soon as we started hearing about COVID that if I got it, I did not want to go to a hospital. I did not want to be put on a ventilator. But I've done this work a long time, and I know what kind of death I want. if people have never talked about it, never thought about it, they just assume the best thing to do is go to the hospital.
Right.
If you're young and you can recover, that's great. If you're old and there's little chance of recovering, then wouldn't you rather die at home with hospice care? Uh, that's what I think, Brenda, and I know you think so too. So
Yes. And I don't know if this is personal, so I don't know if you want to share this or not, but after you told your family your feelings, what was their reaction?
well, because I've done this work such a long time, they are used to me talking about it.
Okay.
At the beginning, they did not like it, and they would say things like, we don't have to talk about this. You're young and you're healthy, and we don't have to. But now they are willing and they're glad to know what I want. And
Good.
it's a gift to your family to know how you feel about this and what you want. Yeah.
Most definitely. And, and on that note, I was just thinking, so I've been working with Department of Neighborhoods, and if you're 65 plus, 50 plus, and live in a multi-generational home or a child care worker, and you'd like to receive a COVID-19 vaccine on Monday, March 8th, please email COVID-19 at mountzionseattle.org. That's COVID-19 at mountzionseattle.org. I have about 200 slots left. So to fill, and I'd love to be able to fill it for those of you that have not had the vaccine. I got my second shot yesterday, and it's just so important that we get it done.
I think it's important that people see that you're not sick, Brenda, and that getting the shot doesn't make you sick.
Right. No, I'm not sick.
Some people have a little reaction, but not everyone. And I've had my first one, and I'm getting my second one soon too. I think it's so important that people get this, but many people are fearful, and they think this vaccine hasn't had enough testing, but that's just not true. We know enough to know that this will keep you from getting the virus, and the virus is very unpleasant for most people.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I had a little soreness last week from my first one, and a little more this time, but it's almost been 24 hours since I had it, and I feel fine. And my one worry though was, oh my gosh, I've got my show the next day. Will I be able to be on for it? But I'm fine.
Yeah, of course, you do get some soreness at the injection site. It's hardly anything worth thinking about. Yeah.
Right.
Compared to all the things that happen to you if you get COVID. Yeah.
Well, the thing about it is, we know that this is not a cure, but if you do get the virus, it's going to minimize your if the effect of it on you. So, I mean, that's just like the flu.
Right.
So
it's a lot.
I'm sorry, Trudy.
It's a lot like the flu shot. It's a preventative.
Right.
It will keep you from getting the most serious cases, but it might keep you from getting it altogether.
That's true too. And I'm for that.
And that's what we want for people. Yeah. We want to be able to get back to our lives. And when things loosen up, I'm hoping that all the people who lost someone to COVID will have an opportunity to get together with other people and share their stories and talk about their loved ones, because that's so important.
Yes, most definitely. Just to update you, you're listening live to Seniors Matter with your host, Brenda Charles-Edwards, on www.rainieravenueradio.world. You can call in at 206-290-9685. This Friday's season opening high school football doubleheader features Seattle Prep versus Ballard at 5 p.m. and Rainier Beach versus Garfield at 8 p.m. and Saturday game, West Seattle versus Cleveland at 5 p.m. with all of these games at Memorial Stadium. Well, at least it'll be airy. This
Yeah.
is Women's History Month. Step out of the space you're in. Use fear to grow. We can change lives, starting with our own. And that was by Soledad O'Brien.
I love your quotes, Brenda. I want to say, I want to just show this. Can I show this?
Sure.
This is the DVD. It's called Speaking of Dying, Living Deeply, Dying Well. Inside the cover, there's a notebook with a lot of instructions, but also it's on Vimeo, so you can buy it on the Speaking of Dying website. I made the film because not everyone can go to a workshop, but almost everyone can watch a DVD or Vimeo. And then if they watch it with their family, it helps them start the conversation because, like you said earlier, the conversation is uncomfortable only because we haven't talked about dying. We often have only heard sad stories. We haven't heard all the good stories about how people's. So here's the thing, I think. We think about our legacy being our will, but really part of our legacy is how we die.
Right.
And that's what people will remember. So it's just so important that we make this subject more comfortable for people. That's been my passion, and that's been what I've done. And I'm probably going to pass this whole business on to one of the other talented facilitators. So there are, on the website, there's a list of 16 people who've learned to do these groups and who like helping people talk about dying, just like me. And I want this to continue. Because I've seen people write to me and they say, oh, my mother had such a much better death because of what I learned from being in the workshop. So, yeah.
Definitely. And as I will, when I close out, I will also mention that I do Zoom facilitating end of life planning, and that seems to work pretty well. So don't think that because you can't get out right now that you can't get the information, because you can.
Quite a few people are doing the workshops on Zoom. And I think it's wonderful. Yeah.
So what's next for Trudy James?
Well, I besides talking about dying, I really like helping people who've lost someone unexpectedly or who are dealing with complicated grief. So I do one-on-one work for people, and I also do grief and loss support groups, and I do retreats for women. So since it's Women's History Month, I'll say we do Aging Wisely Together retreats. In the past, we did them in person over a weekend. Lately, we've done them on Zoom. Because it's Women's History Month, I can say women really can help other women getting together and talking about aging and what that means to them and how to do it well. I think it's possible to do it really well. Yeah. So that's what I'm going to keep doing, all of that.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. But I was just thinking, so when does aging start?
I guess it starts from the minute we're born, Brenda. We're constantly getting older, you know.
Right. I love it.
But now they talk about young, old, middle old, and young old, and old, and there's a lot of different categories people fall into. But I think it's so individual, and it all depends on how you feel. If you're not mobile and you can't do the things that are meaningful to you, then of course you feel really aged, like you've aged. But our goal is to keep active and keep our minds active so that we can age well. And women can help each other do that. That's why I do the retreats. Yeah.
I think that's great. And did I read somewhere that you're going to do one virtually sometime this year?
I've done 2 virtually, and I'm going to do one in May and one in September. Yeah, so I can give you the flyer, which is coming out next week, and if you can pass it around. Yeah,
I'll announce it on my next show after I get it from you.
That all of our work, and speaking of dying and aging wisely, that all of our work has involved people of color, people from different backgrounds, people that have a lot of money, people who have no money. We have a lot to learn from each other, and I believe very much. And of course, I worked with AIDS, so I believe that gay people also have a lot to teach us. So I'm for intersectionality.
I love it. This is Brenda Charles-Edwards, host of Seniors Matter. You can listen to us live on www.rainieravenueradio.world, your community radio station, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, Rainier Avenue app, and Alexa. We're here every Friday at 2:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you're interested in knowing what is the best gift you can give yourself and your loved ones, join me on Zoom for a group or individual session on end-of-life planning. Call me at 206-683-2636. Thank you to my audience for listening, and thank you, Trudy James, for joining us. Be safe, live your life like it's golden. The coronavirus special edition is next. Blessings on your day. Bye, Trudy.
Bye, Brenda.
Thank you.
Hey, oh, hey, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Here with the Rainier Avenue Radio traffic update. You can